Right, here we go. Welcome to Paint Yourself into the Picture, healing conversations to help us create the most amazing picture of our lives. I'm Reba, and I'm so glad you're here. Our guest today is Kamini Desai. Kamini is the Education Director of the Amrit Yoga Institute and the creator of the Amrit method of Yoga Nidra training curriculum. She's the author of Yoga Nidra, The Art of Transformational Sleep. I have to say, I really like that idea. Her work uniquely combines Western psychology, Eastern philosophy, and science. She lectures extensively throughout the U.S. and worldwide. Her corporate clients have included Kellogg's, Sony, Mars Confectionery, and the Netherlands government. In 2012, she was awarded the title Yogeshwari, a woman of yogic mastery, for her keen ability to bring ancient illumination to the challenges of human experience. Kamini, it is such a great honor to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's such a pleasure. And I want to start out by, if you could just give us a brief description and catch us up a little. What is Yoga Nidra?
Sure. So yoga, essentially, the word yoga just means wholeness, experiencing our wholeness, and nidra means sleep. And so in the briefest terms, it's entering the state of wholeness through entering a state of conscious sleep. So yoga nidra is really a meditation technique, but what's different is that it's done lying down. And a lot of times when we do seated meditation techniques, you know, it can be challenging. We're looking at the clock, wondering if we've observed our thoughts long enough, or our knees are hurt, our back hurts. And so Yoga Nidra is really it's so powerful, and it takes people to deep states of Yoga Nidra, of meditation, because you're using the biology of the body, doing something that the body already knows how to do. So every night when we fall asleep, there's one thing that automatically has to happen, and that is that we have to be able to let go of our thoughts. And going down into deeper brainwave states actually creates that effect where your thoughts naturally move away from you, and you enter into that gap between you and your thoughts. And so in Yoga Nidra, what we're doing is we're going into that space consciously, where by virtue of the fact of going down into the brainwave states, you're already naturally in a place where you're disengaged from your thoughts. So it's something where meditation happens rather than you having to do the meditation. And this is why a lot of people find that just from the very first time that they go into very deep states of meditation, that even experienced meditators rarely experience.
Wow. Wow, that sounds so amazing. I'm curious, how did you create this this way of yoga, or how did you get the idea to do this? I love the idea of doing it while we're sleeping. Of course, who wouldn't like that idea?
Yes. Well, actually, you know, even though we haven't heard of it, Yoga Nidra is as old as yoga is. It's just that it's becoming kind of newly rediscovered in our very stressed out, sleep deprived society. So it's just something that's kind of experiencing a revival here in the West, but it's been around for a long time. But just as in the schools of yoga, there are different styles of Yoga Nidra. And so my father, Yogi Desai, kind of revived this technique as part of the tradition that he came from. And then from his revival, I created this curriculum and training and those kinds of things. Yeah.
That's just so beautiful, just to be following and continuing your father's work. Because I know that your work is very much about creating the training programs around this, so that the work existed, but then you brought your individual talents to bear on this thing that existed for many hundreds of years or thousands of years, and that's continuing also your father's work. It's just very beautiful.
I love doing it. And the thing is, you know, there are so many people who really need the benefits of yoga, even if they don't know it. Everybody needs to be a little bit more peaceful, a little bit more relaxed, a little bit healthier, you know, a little bit quieter drama in our lives. And that's yoga. But a lot of people say, well, I can't touch my toes, or I don't want to go into a yoga studio. I don't want to put on, you know, a stretchy outfit. People will see my belly. So this is, you know, if you can lie down and not fall asleep, you can do Yoga Nidra. You know, and even if you do fall asleep, you actually get a lot of benefits. And people use Yoga Nidra actually to fall asleep. They use it for insomnia. So it just makes this practice so accessible to all kinds of people who want to use really these ancient benefits of yoga.
So what is it exactly? Do you lie down and have to think a series of thoughts, or do you listen to a tape, or how does it work?
Good question. Okay, so you're lying down, generally speaking. You could be also on a lazy boy, something where you can be as still as possible. And what we're doing is we're basically removing the body out of the picture and the mind out of the picture little bit by little bit. So it's not something that you do, it's actually a subtraction of doing. And so the lying down actually, for a lot of people, takes the body out of the equation to a large degree. So you just want to be comfortable lying down, and then you're actually guided. So you don't guide yourself, because again, that would be doing or thinking. And you're guided through a series of techniques that work you through progressively less layers of doing. So in the beginning, for example, we do like tension and relaxation or a couple stretches, and then the body relaxes and the body's out of the way. Then we go a little subtler, we go into energy. And so we have you breathe, and then you feel the effect of that, and then you drop down even further into even less doing. And then in this kind of very kind of passive volitional, you're not really trying to do it, you just direct that attention around your body. And this has a lot of healing and rejuvenating effects. It's kind of like acupuncture. You're bringing attention to the different energy points in the body. And that process also takes you even deeper until finally you're at what we call the bottom of the ocean. So if we've gone from the wave where we're in the doing, thinking mind, we've kind of dropped all the way down to that still silent place at the bottom of the ocean where your body is actually deeply regenerating at that place. And there's all kinds of biochemical benefits and brain benefits, which I'm sure we'll get into. So that's kind of how it works. It's progressive release of doing into these subtle states of being.
So you're listening to somebody at this time, or?
Yes. So either you're live or you're doing it with an MP3 or a CD, something that's guiding you. Because again, the idea is that if you're thinking about what to do next, then you're not releasing your doing because you're still thinking of the next thing.
Right, I totally get that. It sounds really beautiful, and I want to try it myself. And why don't we just go to what are some of the benefits, because it does sound absolutely delicious and relaxing. But I'm sure it goes far, far deeper than that in terms of providing really true benefits, health benefits. So if you could share a little bit about what's the real purpose of doing this, besides the obvious relaxation and feel-good part?
Yeah. Well, this practice can be used on a lot of levels. The ultimate practice was actually developed for us to recognize that there is a state of being that exists beyond our mind. And so many of us get identified with our mind and the emotions. And because we're so identified with the contents of our mind, we get dragged around by these contents. And so Yoga Nidra ultimately is a way for us to recognize and rest in a state of being that abides, that is centered, that is always calm, regardless of the contents or the mind stuff that's moving through the mind. So it allows us to have a place to be centered and grounded, even though that there are all kinds of changing experiences moving through. So that's kind of on its ultimate level, which is still good for all of us. And it's also, the ultimate stress management, let's say. But just the process of Yoga Nidra does a lot for the biochemistry of your body. Going down through the brain waves, for example, in theta and delta brainwave states, this is where you have creative ideas in the theta brainwave state. So if you've ever gone to sleep with a problem or an issue and then you wake up and you're like, the answer. Have you ever had that before? You know that one? Yeah. Or this is where, emotional integration, where, we often think, I have to figure out the answer to something in the waking state to know the answer. And yet often it's when we let go of the mind when the answers really come, when the integration really comes.
Right.
And so it's these deeper states of theta where deeper integration can happen similar to as in sleep. But because it's conscious, it's just a little bit more accelerated and a little bit more powerful.
Yes.
It's pretty neat. In the delta brainwave state, which is the deepest, this is where you go when you're in a coma. I mean, it's a very deep state of meditative relaxation. And here's where human growth hormone is released. This is something that, as we get older, less and less of it is released, and it has to do with bone mineralization, the growth and regeneration of all our organs, including the brain. It has to do with protein synthesis and fat metabolism, which most of us could use a little bit of. So it's, this is where cortisol, the stress hormone, is taken out of our system. So all kinds of things are happening in these deep, deep states of Yoga Nidra. And again, it's so good for us. You're just lying down, you're doing nothing, and your body is getting all these regenerative benefits.
That's incredible, because from what you've said, I mean, you started out with, it's like any other yogic practice, which leads to a kind of a form of enlightenment, which is the realization of who and what we really are, which is a wonderful goal. But if that's not your personal goal, then there's also this accessing your creativity, which is so tremendous for so many people, that they want that spark of, I got it, and I know just what to do. So that's an incredible value. And then deeper than that, there's that very fundamental health benefit that's coming in on those very subtle levels of releasing of hormones and minerals and all that good stuff. So it's tremendous. So this is like a magic pill almost. And what I want to know is it one thing, like you can say, here's this MP3 and it takes you 20 minutes and you just keep using that for the rest of your life? Or are there kind of gradations to the training of this and the learning of this and the using of it?
That's a good question. You really can use, so each Yoga Nidra sequence is made up of a series of techniques, and those techniques will, a lot of people do a CD or a technique for a sequence for a period of time, and then they say, well, I'd like to try something else, I'd like to switch it up. Kind of like a workout or a workout routine that you do. You love it for a while and then you want to switch it up and make it different. And so a lot of people will do one for a while and then they'll change to something else and then they'll switch back and they have their favorites. But the nice thing is that each of the techniques of Yoga Nidra are actually good for different things. So for example, one of the breathing techniques we do is something called Sheetly breath, where you're blowing as if you're blowing out through your mouth like a straw. And that is really good for balancing your blood sugar, So anyone with diabetes, with blood sugar issues, also with like COPD, this is excellent for them. There are other techniques that are really good for the management of chronic pain. So every sequence will have certain things that it's good for. And doing a kind of a mix of them is nice because you're kind of covering all your bases, which is a nice thing.
And you're hearing it new. I know that I studied with a spiritual teacher for many years, and she would give us meditations on tape. We were using cassettes back then, which is how long ago it was. And, of course, the first few times it just totally blows your mind. And by the next week, you're on automatic, so it's not new and it's not fresh and it's not going in. So just even for that, that's terrific to have different things, 4 different things to kind of vary it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you about spontaneous healing. Does that happen with Yoga Nidra as well?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with Ayurveda, but it's a sister science to yoga, and it's basically the ancient Indian system of healing, kind of like acupuncture or Oriental healing is to China and Japan. And basically, one of the things that they say is that when we have attached to particular thought patterns repeatedly over time, they begin to affect the energy of the body, which eventually affects the physical body. It starts with the biochemistry, it comes into the hormones, and then eventually affects our whole system. And what they say is that when you go into states like Yoga Nidra, where you're completely disengaged from this programming that's affecting your health, this is where spontaneous healing can happen. Because it's kind of like you're wiping the slate clean. And with that wipe slate like clean, whatever programming was there that was affecting your body in an unhelpful way is temporarily released. and you're abiding as the self beyond the mind, and your body becomes, it kind of gets hooked into the programming of the source as opposed to the programming of your mind.
Right.
And this is what Ayurvedic physicians call spontaneous healing, right? That when you're reconnected with the source and that programming of the source kind of reconfigures your body in alignment with it, spontaneous healing happens.
Interesting. And, the question I have is, you lie down, you let go, you have a new pattern taking over, a healthier pattern, you experience healing. And then do you sit up and go back to your old patterns and start worrying again? So can you address that a little bit?
So what happens is the ultimate purpose of Yoga Nidra is not to just temporarily work for the 20 minutes that you're doing it, although it will give you relief. But the more that you recognize this calm, centered source, let's say beyond your mind, even when you're out of the Yoga Nidra, that is where you're going to be resting more and more. Mm-hmm. And so you're going to be less at the effect of what's moving through. You're going to be less at the effect of the programming. You're going to see your mind and its programming rather than believing it and acting from its unconscious, reflexive, reactive patterns. So you'll be able to more watch it and go, okay, thank you for sharing, but we're not going there, right? So you'll be more disidentified from it. Mm-hmm. And this is the beauty of yoga and Yoga Nidra, is that it doesn't say that you have to get rid of your thoughts. It's more our relationship to our thoughts. And so this is what begins to change with the practice of Yoga Nidra, is that our relationship to these thoughts changes so that we can see them as something outside of us and choose to believe them, interact with them, act on them, or not. And therefore, their effect on the chemistry and the biology of our body is shifted, because it's something it's like a cloud moving through the sky, rather than us believing that we are that cloud and it therefore affecting us.
Right, because we've seen the whole sky, so we know it's just a cloud. So just out of curiosity, I mentioned in your bio that you work with all these corporate entities, and what's that like, and what are they seeking from Yoga Nidra, and how do you approach a corporate entity with this information?
That's a good question. Well, one of the areas is actually you touched on, which is the creativity. So one of the places that I've done a lot of work is in advertising, marketing sections, places where they're trying to come up with new ways to promote and advertise. And, if you think about it, people in the advertising industry are paid for being creative, and yet the more pressure we're under, the harder it is to be creative. Right? And so we use going into Yoga Nidra as a way to kind of release the mind, release the pressure, and all of a sudden these ideas start to flow. And all of the things that like writer's block, the advertiser's block, all of that starts to get released and the ideas start to come. Yeah. So that's one of the big areas that we work with. Another area that we've worked with is in developing resiliency. So before, for example, someone goes into a wartime or a stressful situation, this is in terms of working with governments and using this technique for governments, so first of all, there's parts of the brain that are not fully developed until we're between 22 and 26 years old, the prefrontal cortex. And it's the prefrontal cortex that actually modulates, it helps us stay centered and grounded in the midst of a fight or flight response. So it kind of acts like the parent that keeps us calm and able to keep the situation under control, not only during but after. And this is not fully developed until we're between the ages of 22 and 26. So what some governments are looking at is helping people develop this resiliency, this prefrontal cortex, and their ability for their brain to be in the best possible place to handle the stressors that they may be facing. And this is not just for people going into the military. This could be for first responders, EMTs, doctors, emergency rooms, because we have people who are doing great work, but who themselves get traumatized by what they see. Yes. So that's a really good place that I've been working in. And then just, not just, but, stress. Stress is we get hired for our talents and our skills, but it's actually been shown that being under chronic long-term stress can reduce our problem-solving ability by up to 50%.
Wow.
So if we're under stress, even if we're talented and smart and together and all those things, you can cut your productivity in half and your ability to be creative and productive just because we're under stress. And so that's a big area that I work in the corporate environment.
Tremendous. And it's really tremendous to help young people going into war type situations. I mean, that's a really profound use of it. And I'm sure it has so many more applications. It sounds like just an amazing technique. And I'm sure my viewers are going to want to know how they can learn more. So how can they get in touch with you, Kamini?
Yes, so my website is my name, so it's kaminidesai.com, KAMINIDESAI.com. I also have a book that's on pre-order on Amazon. It's just come out. It's called Yoga Nidra, The Art of Transformational Sleep that you mentioned. So that would be a good resource as well.
That sounds incredible, and that's free.
The book is not free.
Oh, I thought you said it was pre-order. It's pre-order. Excuse me.
Pre-order. My bad. Sorry.
No,
but I will say that I have some free Yoga Nidras actually on YouTube. So that would be something to check out if you want to just try it. If people want to try it out, that would be, just to get a feel for what it is.
Absolutely. That sounds incredible. Well, thank you so much for being our guest here on Paint Yourself into the Picture. Such an honor to have you here.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
And thank you to all our viewers. We love having you here. And if you like what you're seeing, please stay in touch. My website is rebalinker.com. My Facebook group is Leaders in Self-Love. Please subscribe and like the video. And I adore reading your comments. So let us know how you like what you're seeing. And join us again next week for another healing conversation. Until then, remember that this is your time to shine. Learn how to paint yourself into the picture, because this is how we heal. Many blessings.